I'm Tara.
I'm Ryan.
We love Disney movies.
So we decided to watch them all, from Snow White
to Frozen 2 and beyond. Each episode will watch a different Walt Disney Animated Studios film and tell you all about it.
Did we like it? Does it hold up? Who's our favorite hero?
Or villain.
We'll give you history and fun facts about each movie.
And sometimes we'll invite our friends to watch along with us.
So put on your tiara
or your evil crown
and join us on our adventure.
This is Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries. Hello, listeners.
Hello, welcome to Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries. Today with us, we have a very special guest because we are watching Fantasia, the musical.
1940. And we have one of my besties.
Oh, one of your besties from high school and beyond. Do you want us to say your last name? We'll just ask that right now. We're not saying anybody's last name, so you want to just do Chris? Mr. Chris?
Perfect.
Okay. So we got Mr. Chris.
In the house from New Jersey.
Hi, guys.
You guys were, on fire before this thing started, and then all of a sudden we started both hello, I'm on a podcast, I'm being recorded. So, you guys, how do you two know each other?
Well, so Chris and I have different stories.
Oh, no.
Well, because I remember Chris from middle school and that we started becoming friends when he was a freshman, I was a sophomore. He swears that I was mean to him in middle school and didn't like him.
Yeah, you were. I
was not.
I remember that at Dorney Park on our 8th grade band trip. But then in high school it changed. Then we became friends.
I don't remember being mean to him. But we both played alto saxophone, so that's how we got together, knowing each other. And then we both played mellophone and French horn. And
Chris has taken, we have, I guess, two musicians in the podcast today. But Chris has taken his musical, this alto sax and musical background and extended it. Now you're a music teacher?
Yeah.
He's a music educator.
A music educator.
So I've been teaching for about 10 years. Oh my
God.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It's wild.
So I've taught high school band. I've taught elementary music, conducting youth orchestras. You name it, I've done it.
And then professionally played too.
Yeah, and I still continue to play with orchestras.
French horn, correct?
Yeah.
And he also does a little tube and throat singing on the side.
Yeah, that's just a little side hustle.
And
really, that was a perfect opening for you to hit us with some, and you just let it go. Okay. And you guys, we've got your regular background, but you guys have a little bit of a Disney background. You've been to Walt Disney World a couple times?
Yes.
Since you're both East Coast, that seems to be East Coast does Disney World, West Coast is...
Yeah, so we've only gone once because I went my freshman year in high school, so Chris was in 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And then we
enjoying 8th grade because that mean girl had left.
So, did we go your junior year, my senior year? Or was it sophomore, junior? Do you remember?
I think it was sophomore, junior.
Yeah, I don't remember the age, but we went and I was looking through the pictures. And do you remember when the bus broke down?
I do remember the bus breaking down.
Yeah, so we drove from New Jersey to Florida, and the bus broke down.
How long is that drive?
It's a long time.
Yeah, it's almost 20 hours.
We drove straight through, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then the bus broke down on the way back, and so we were stranded at an old-timey general store that was closed. Mm-hmm. And we were stranded at south of the border for a little bit, and then a Waffle House. I remember all of us sitting outside a Waffle House.
The Waffle House. Wasn't there something about when we were at the general store where we all had to go inside the building because a car was circling the parking lot or something?
There was something weird where people
crazy.
were driving around us and nobody knew what was going on, and then we ended up in a courthouse.
Yeah.
A small town courthouse, remember? Because we slept. We put our beds and blankets and pillows on the ground of a courthourhouse. It was a while before they got us new buses.
Yeah.
So what we're getting at is apparently Chris and Tara were hobos together. And
for about a day.
Riding the rails on the way. Yeah. So do either of you guys remember seeing this one? I think, Chris, you haven't seen this one.
I have not seen the original Fantasia.
Do you know anything about? Do you know any of the songs that are in it, or do you remember anything from it, or have any vague memory of?
I do know the Sorcerer's Apprentice. I know that's in it with the with Mickey and the broomsticks. That's the famous song from it. And I know a couple. I think the Nutcracker's in this one too.
The Nutcracker's in this one. Toccata and Fugue in D minor.
Well, we kind of skipped this part. Do you want to read? What you can do is, do you want to read the?
I'll read the synopsis.
The synopsis, and then you can do a quick rundown of.
Yeah, because there's a lot of songs.
Yeah.
Released in 1940, represented Disney's boldest experiment to date, bringing to life his vision of blending animated imagery with classical music. What had begun as a vehicle to enhance Mickey Mouse's career blossomed into a full-blown feature that remains unique in the history of animation. And then, if you're watching it on Disney Plus, they have a line at the end that says some of these cultural references may be outdated. I'm really excited to spot those. It did get 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
So,
which I found interesting.
Let's hit up the set list before we start it.
Okay.
But let me give you a little bit of stuff. What I do, Chris, is I tend to watch a documentary a little before we watch it, so I can act like I knew this stuff beforehand, but really I just knew it as of like less than 24 hours ago. But so this did start off as simply a short, which was Mickey doing the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Okay.
And Disney had done a lot of things. They basically did the Mickey Mouse shorts where it was mostly narrative with the music being enhancing the narrative or just going with it. And then Walt Disney had like a real passion for music, so he did the silly symphonies, which were, we have a piece of music, let's do animation to the music. That's where, if you ever remember the famous, like, do you ever remember the skeleton dance from Halloween and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was a silly symphony. Yeah, a lot of those were, he had a piece of music and then he did something to it.
I think that was Dance
So he wanted to do this with, yes, I think. But he had the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and he wanted to do a Mickey Mouse thing. But then he started talking. He ended up going to lunch, and at lunch was Leopold Stokowski. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
And basically, Walt Disney, being Walt Disney, like just goes, "Can I eat lunch with you?" And they ended up having like a multi-hour lunch. And he was like, "I'd like for you to conduct this. I'd like for you to do this. What should I do to make this better?" And Stokowski was like, "Well, yes, I was like really interested in animation." He goes, "This is all the things you should do." He ended up getting like 100-piece orchestra to record all this stuff. Like, it's amazing all the stuff they did. They basically had like a live stage, and they did all.
We'll see it, I believe, in Fantasia. You see.
Yes.
How do you say it? Stokowski?
There's a I forgot the name of there's a presenter who was also like a big music critic at the time. And Stokowski was like, well, I think we should do all these different songs. I don't think you should just do the Sorcerer's Apprentice. And Roy Disney, his brother, who was the numbers guy, went, "We're not going to make any money back if you just make a short that costs. We're going to have a 100-piece orchestra. We do this, and this. Like, we're not going to make any money back." And so he said, "Well, we'll turn it into a feature." And they did all this stuff, and it was mostly based on like the music and all that. And they did all those things together. They did a series of pieces. The idea originally was, as it kept going, is every few months, like every 6 months or a year, they'd take out pieces and they'd add new pieces.
Oh, wow.
And it would just continuously be running.
It would cycle through.
There was some stuff on the thing. There's some study that had. Well, hold on, I've got a list of the ones they were going to do. Claire
and did they
de Lune.
include any of those in Fantasia 2000 or no?
I don't know. It's Claire de Lune and Ride of the Valkyries and a couple other things, and they'd started some work on them. And then Fantasia was a financial failure. And it was a big problem because the first thing they did is they did like a road show, and they had people show up, and it would do 2 shows a day in big cities, and you were supposed to show, and they had like programs, and they
to make it feel like an orchestra.
Yes,
concert.
And it was the first time using what ended up becoming stereophonic sound. But they called it Fantasound. And so they had to like hook up all these theaters with new sound and everything. And so it didn't do well. And then they go, okay, then they convinced RKO to redistribute it, because RKO usually did their distribution. They said, we're not going to do this. It's a 2-hour concert. And then it did badly, and RKO said, okay, we'll do it if you can get it down to 80 minutes. So they like cut it down to an 80-minute version and sent it out to Middle America, and it didn't do very well. That's pretty much all my information I have. I realize I kind of went on and on and on, but that's what I
fine.
did.
I had one thing, and then we can go through the songs, but it was Stravinsky, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you had a
Stravinsky was
fact.
the only composer who was alive when this came out, and he came out saying how he was not happy with the arrangement that they did of the song that they used for him. And let me look
I don't
at
remember
what
which one was Stravinsky's.
I don't either. Let me look.
Oh, I think he did the Rite of Spring, right?
Was
Yes,
it the Seasons?
The Rite of Spring. So yeah, he apparently, I guess the way they orchestrate the Rite of Spring, he was not pleased with the final product once he saw it. But the rest of the composers, I think, were all dead, so nobody else had feedback. So he
Rite
was
of
the only
Spring
one.
may have been one of the, like, they did a couple that are kind of abstract.
So,
Which is the first ones they cut when they sent it out to Middle
so
America.
the order, there are 15
Yes.
pieces in this, and it's Toccata and Fugue in D minor,
That's one of the abstract ones.
the Nutcracker's Suite, then Sorcerer's Apprentice. So I always remembered Sorcerer's Apprentice at the end, but I guess that's not the case. It's like right in the middle. Rite of Spring, Symphony No. 6, the Pastoral, and there's the 3 movements of that. Then Dance of the Hours from... What is it from?
From Fantasia. When you click on it, it says Dance of the Hours.
No, but it says something after it.
It's a ballet,
So it must
which
be
was an interesting thing because that's the one with the hippos and the...
And then A Night at Bald Mountain. That's the other one I remember. And were you in middle school when we played A Night on Bald Mountain?
I don't think.
Or did you
so.
block out most of middle school because of your bullying?
I blocked it out.
He
from
could
the
have been in
traumatic
6th grade,
experience.
okay? He might not have been there yet. And then Ave Maria is what closes it out. But I remember playing A Night on Bald Mountain in middle school. But.
Yeah. I remember these mostly from... I don't know that I've actually sat down and watched Fantasia.
I'm the only one who's watched it?
Because I've seen most of them because I've seen at Halloween on Disney Channel they played Night on Bald Mountain.
Oh.
I remember specifically skipping anytime they played Ave Maria because I didn't care. I've seen the Nutcracker stuff. I've seen a lot of the each bit because they had a thing. I think we've talked about it about DTV on Disney Channel, which was like they're like MTV for like 30 minutes where they'd show music with stuff, but they just flat out took pieces from Fantasia and threw that in there.
Yeah. What I find interesting is I feel like people who watch this, and I'm sure when we watch it, you're going to have personal connections to each piece. Like, and that's what I'm curious about. Like, I'm curious, it's the music therapist part of me, but I'm curious, like, for each of us, after we watch it or while we're watching it, like, what associations we have with it, and do the visuals match up with our associations? Do you know what I'm saying?
Do any of those pieces, like, have you played them before, Chris, or have you, or either of you? I know most of your this type of music is more
Night on Bald Mountain I played in middle school. I don't know that I ever played the Nutcracker Suites.
I've played the Nutcracker almost every Christmas, and like Beethoven Symphony
in something or just like around
just
the
by
house?
myself. No, with usually with a group, a ballet group that they dance to it while we play. But what's interesting is
Still in your house.
what's interesting is the Beethoven Symphony. I think is one of the few like programmatic pieces, meaning that like the composer made it with the intent to tell a story. So the Nutcracker and the Pastoral Symphony, like those pieces were written with a story in mind from the composer, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see the story that someone else came up with.
That's interesting because that was a big deal with the Nutcracker because they do not go with they made a decision to. The whole point of this is to tell stories with music, and this one actually told a story, and Disney went, no, we're going to do a completely different story.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting what the pastoral imaging
Can't remember
is,
what the
'cause
pastoral
I can't remember
was,
what
but yeah.
that story is. But.
That's all about a country setting. Beethoven was just imagining the country setting because that made him feel peaceful and happy. So then, and then I think another movement of that is there's a storm, I think in the 4th movement. I don't know if that's one that they do. And then the last movement is like a shepherd's song. So I don't know what they are going to be doing with that.
It's interesting when I was watching the documentary because I didn't think about like classical musicians saying like this is the story or even this is the image I want to put in your mind with music. Like I just never thought about. I don't know. It's just my mind. I'm not like a super big classical person, and anytime I do enjoy classical music, it's typically because I have such a specific piece of imagery in my head, like in this. So it makes total sense that that's what the artist is doing.
Yeah, and to me,
when they're composing it.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And to me, one of the coolest things about music is that you can have 2 or 3 people listening to the same piece of music, and each person has a different emotional response to it, or that can compare it with a different memory. And what's even cooler about that is if we were to sit down and listen to that same piece, 15 years from now, our own personal response to that piece of music changes based on what's happened to us in those 10, 15 years that have passed. So I think it's really cool how music grows and changes as we listen to it.
And that's literally my soapbox when I go into retirement communities. Like Chris basically said it word for word, how I say it when I go in and sing about how we're all going to have a different experience. And I would agree with that. It's fascinating to me. And I love the idea of when I go to a classical performance, a lot of times I'm watching the audience and not the orchestra.
It's really annoying. She's turned around in her seat, like up on it, like, looking around like a gopher.
No, but I do enjoy
front.
like watching other people experience it. Sometimes it takes me out of the experience, but sometimes like that's what I prefer to focus on. It kind of depends on what I'm listening to.
There's one more thing I want to go over before we start watching it. This was a quote from Walt Disney. I think specifically, I don't know if it was for Fantasia, but it was one that they kept using, that the artist kept bringing up and saying, like, this is something Walt used to say. And that was, the primary purpose of any of the fine arts is to arouse a purely emotional reaction in the beholder. Let's all take a moment and that. Chris, I didn't get a from you. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think? Did anybody have anything of that, or we all just agree that it's okay, cool?
I think that's what kind of defines good art, whether it's music, art, dance, video games. If there's an emotional response that you have to it, it's successful.
Yeah, I think the composer has done their job, or the performer, or the artist, or whatever it is.
I liked it. I guess this is something maybe someone who didn't grow up as artful as you guys did was more impressed with. I was like, oh, that's really good. I got to write that down. You guys are like, yeah, dum-dum, that's what fine art is. We get it.
I don't want to call you a dum-dum, but like going back to what Chris said earlier and that quote, I mean, essentially, like that's a big foundation of music therapy is if you can create and foster an emotional experience and a meaningful experience through music. Like, that's a lot of what I base my work off of and a lot of what I focus on.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure with Chris, it's the same thing with kids, especially elementary. You're trying to foster their love of music. You're trying to start that growth.
Yeah, exactly. And
I would
and
imagine.
having them, the emotional response, being love and happiness that they're associating with music to, that they continue to take with them.
Because we've also both had not super positive experiences with music educators in the past, and we'll leave it vague.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But that's something that Chris and I have talked a lot about just in general, and I hear it a lot with older adults that say, oh, I had a piano teacher and she was so mean and I just stopped playing, or I was told.
I don't think I never didn't have a mean piano teacher.
Well, or I was told there's a difference between mean and strict too, I think. But I have many older adults who have come to me and said, I was told this, this, and this. And they're all super negative comments. And so I just stopped doing music altogether. And it breaks my heart when I hear that. And I feel like there are a lot of people out there in the world who are probably more musical than they give them credit for. But because of the experiences they had, in some way, shape, or form, it kind of guides them away from it, if that makes sense.
That was one of the things they talked a lot about Walt Disney in this documentary, was that Walt they were like, he was a musician without an instrument. Like, he had a real ear for what he wanted to do and how he wanted to see it and bring it into this brand new medium that he had pretty much monopoly over it at this point, which was like,
because he's the only one doing it.
and instead of just going, well, we're just gonna do a bunch of Snow White over and over again, he's like, I want to do this Fantasia thing. It's gonna be crazy. And I think everyone who was the musicians they interviewed were like, oh yeah, I had a really good sense of this and that and the other. So, well, I think now's a good time to maybe stop and
watch
watch
2
this.
hours.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in 2 hours.
All right.
But yeah, check out Fantasia, and we'll be right back.
And we're back.
So,
After 2 hours.
After 2 hours. Whew.
That's a long movie.
You know what? The whole movie to me didn't feel as long as certain parts of it felt.
I would agree with
Yeah.
that. Like, certain specific
Sections
segments.
definitely felt very long, like
Yeah.
the ones I didn't like. But overall, I liked that one a lot more than I think I used to, like when I was a kid, be like, ugh, Fantasia. Ugh. And now I really enjoyed it.
See, like I said when we were watching it, I had the VHS, so I can remember watching it at home.
Tara liked it before. It was cool to like it, is
I
what
did,
I'm hearing
guys.
right
I
now.
was in on it.
What'd you think, Chris?
Yeah, I liked it, but there were definitely parts that were that I didn't like. You feel bad saying that. I play classical music all the time, but there were definitely parts of it that I was indifferent about and could have skipped through.
Well, see, that's the thing that's always interesting to me about this one, because the way I consumed it was definitely piecemeal. And there's some of those that I don't think I'd ever seen all the way through, specifically the first one. And I think all of the dinosaur one. I think they usually just show the dinosaur part and skip all the other parts of it.
Well, and I was thinking, too, if you were to watch this with kids, none of us have children, but I would think it's
That we
long
know
for
of.
them to sit through. Like, I think you'd have to watch it segmented it.
Well, that was one thing I think
Yeah.
we should start talking about in this is, do we think kids would like this in this? Because I think a lot of our friends will listen to this, and a lot of them have kids, and I think some of them want to hear.
the kids would love the Dance of the Hours.
Yeah, there were parts of it I thought were fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
how about we go through it part by
Yeah.
part, and we'll talk a little bit about each thing.
So one
and get to the
thing
part
we
where
wanna-
Chris shoots, there are shots fired at Stravinsky.
We'll wait till we get there. But one thing we did want to mention is you mentioned about your French horn mouthpiece.
Yeah, tell that story.
Yeah, so looking up at the about the orchestra that recorded this, and I saw it was the Philadelphia Orchestra, and it was recorded in 1940. So a couple years ago, I ran into another horn player who had this like big mouthpiece collection, and we were talking about different mouthpieces, and I tried one. I liked it, and he's
Ryan's laughing, but he nerds out over so many different things. So the fact that he's laughing at you, ignore.
No, this is a complete nerd out story on the French horn. So anyway, I tried this mouthpiece this guy has, and I really liked it. And there was nothing written on the mouthpiece. It's clearly very old. And he goes, actually, that one's from Mason Jones, who was a principal horn player for the Philadelphia Orchestra for many years, and he started in 1940. So when I saw that the Philadelphia Orchestra was playing on this in 1940, I checked to see if he was on the recording, and he is. He actually just got the job with the Philly Orchestra when they started doing
That's really cool.
this.
And it's neat
I
that
have
that
the
was, like, one of
mouthpiece
his-
what's that?
Go ahead, sorry.
And so this guy who had the mouthpiece, he was actually really nice, and he let me have it because I liked it so much, and he didn't use it at all. So it's kind of cool that I have one of the mouthpieces that one of the horn players from the soundtrack was playing on.
Can I ask a question? And
Go for it.
both of you hopefully don't get mad at me. How, if there's nothing written on it, how do you know for sure this guy, like, how do you know this guy wasn't lying to you?
I mean, there is a chance of that. However, if you do research on Mason Jones, he was known for having an extensive collection of horn mouthpieces, and a lot of them ended up going into museums. But I know as a horn teacher, a lot of times I'll give my students mouthpieces, and I may or may not ever see them again. So I think that may be kind of what happened with this mouthpiece is he gave it to
was
someone,
passed to someone.
and it got passed around.
On his deathbed, he was like, my mouthpiece.
That's really cool, though. That's
Yeah.
a great story. It's really neat. And it's neat that that was his first gig with the orchestra.
Yeah,
or an early gig. Yeah.
He got that job when I think he was like 20 years old or 21
wow.
with the Philly Orchestra.
I haven't done anything.
Yeah, right?
I know.
I mean, it's amazing how much he did when he was 20.
So, Terry, you want to take us through this movie?
Sure, I'll do my best. To be the narrator like Deems Taylor was. There's our segue. But Deems Taylor kind of guides the audience throughout. What I found interesting is in the beginning and then before each piece, he guides the audience what they're going to see visually and kind of tells the story before you see the story. And I'm wondering if that's because they weren't sure how open to people were going to be about this. Like, I was curious that he described each visual
He also,
piece.
Walt really wanted this to feel like a lot, like you were at the orchestra or something like that. Like, he wanted you to feel like this was something you went to. And, like, that's why they had the ushers. They taught ushers in theaters. They're like, hey, you're going to take them to their seats. And the ushers are like, we just point. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and they're like, no, you're going to take them to their seat. You're going to give them a what is this
Program.
called? A program and all that.
Well, and it was very educational. I'm not knocking it.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting way to present it.
This was meant as a way to bring fine arts to kind of like the world in a more palatable way.
The other thing I remember from a kid that I liked seeing was the silhouettes. So when Toccata in D minor opens from Bach, seeing the silhouettes of the orchestra, we don't go directly to animation for a good amount of that piece.
But they do a lot of editing and interesting stuff it's not just a steady shot on the orchestra.
Yes,
it's like
yeah.
they're stacked in certain ways. There's different color lights coming. It's definitely a visual experience happening at the same time.
And I think it makes it feel more grand. It definitely felt like more than 100 people.
I have a question for you guys. Did you guys ever close your eyes when you're at a concert, like a classical concert, and listen that way?
Yeah.
Okay. I always kind of feel like I shouldn't be doing that because people think I'm asleep, or I might actually fall asleep because I'll just be relaxed. But I do that. I do that sometimes where that's where I try and get the visualization in my head.
Yeah, I think it depends too on like the piece of music that you're listening to. There are definitely pieces that I like to watch the performer playing them because just sometimes seeing someone play something really virtuosic is like impressive. But sometimes there's just a mood that the piece creates that you just kind of go into your own world with. I think that's okay to close your eyes and listen.
Yeah, there's something specific. I couldn't remember the name of it, so I looked it up. It's called Synesthesia. I don't know.
Cinnamon buns.
I don't know.
Synesthesia?
That's it.
Yeah.
Synesthesia. I knew I wasn't going to say it right. Which is where you hear a sound, but you see color.
Yeah.
And so 4% of the people in the earth experience this, says this article. But I was curious with the animation in general. I looked it up, there were over 1,000 artists and technicians that worked on Fantasia on the more than 500 animated characters that we see. And what I was curious was, did they listen to the music and then they were inspired and then they drew? And then how did they decide which animation was chosen?
I mean, they definitely had stories they were talking about as they were listening. I think Walt kind of said, I want this to do this and I want this to do this. I know he was looking into abstract through a lot of these, especially this one. This one he based off, there was a German, forgot his name. Apologies to this German abstract 1940s cartoonist. But he did a lot of that stuff. And they actually brought him in and he had an idea and Walt said, I don't like it. They redid it because his was just mostly, like if you look at the one we saw, there was like those rolling hills, but in the background was a skyline and that was supposed to orient the viewer. And he was worried, the other guy showed was just like weird shapes going in all ways and he was like, no one's gonna like this. It's too much.
Even when it starts to be animated, it's images from the orchestra. It's the bows of the violins and the strings. Yeah. And so it kind of gradually brings you into the abstract.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool how they used the colors with the shadows and then, made the cartoons mimic the visuals that you were seeing before. It almost felt like kind of like going down the rabbit hole.
So let's real quick. I'm gonna call an audible here. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and everyone give a thumbs up and thumbs down if they like this section.
Wait,
we'll try it. We'll just see.
This song?
Not the song. Just this. Maybe not specifically this song, but this segment from the movie.
Okay.
You want to do 1, 2, 3?
All right, all
It's
three
got
of us
3
like
thumbs
this
up.
one.
I like this one too. You're gonna find I think I like most of them, but I don't know about the rest of you. But all right, so what's the next one?
So the next one is the Nutcracker Suites, and I think I misspoke. Go ahead. Did you have something else?
I had one more thing that I had.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Toccata. One of the things I really liked about it was it was almost hypnotizing. Like when it got to the cartoon section, the way the shapes and colors were going. I know you're talking before about how kids might perceive this. I remember watching it and almost feeling hypnotized by the music and the visuals going on, and I could definitely see how kids watching it, it could draw them into it and stay with it and keep their interest.
Very cool.
And I wonder if it would foster their creativity as well, because it's abstract enough. I'd be interested to have them watch it and then have them draw, or have them watch it and then have them play on an instrument and see if they.
Yeah.
A lot of hms.
And actually too, did you know that the that song also was that's an organ song? You guys know.
Yes.
Oh yeah, because it's Dracula's song.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
what I think of that song.
And I read a little bit about Fantasia and this piece, and this song was not actually popular until Fantasia.
Oh really?
That's interesting.
And when Stokowski took it and made the orchestral version of it, it started becoming a lot more popular, and then eventually became one of the most popular organ pieces out there.
And now, did they arrange it, or did they use the original? Do you know?
Well, the original's for organ, so I think.
So it would have to be.
Yeah, I think Stokowski did all the arranging on this. I don't know if anyone else worked with him, but I think he did.
All right, let's look at the next one.
Yeah, so Nutcracker Suite.
Well, this one is kind of, it's all the scenes from the Nutcracker that are all the dances and
I don't believe it's in the same order as the original from what I looked up.
Yeah.
But I just did a quick glance.
I'm not sure. Said the least music history talented of the trio speaking to.
I did a quick glance when I was watching it, but I was trying not to look up too many things as we were watching, so I don't believe it's in the order.
I'm not sure either. The only one I know is that the Dance of the Sugar Plum does come first in the ballet.
And the Waltz of the Flowers, I'm pretty sure, comes at the end, right?
I think so. It's just all those songs in the ballet are all together anyway, and they all come out in sections, so it's hard to remember which one. Kind of.
So it starts with Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies, and I don't know if you guys had anything for that one.
Well, I mean, I've got things talking about it as a whole, and the whole idea.
Okay, so I'll just list the order, and then we can go into it. So it's Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies, and then it's the Chinese dance, or I like to call the mushroom dumplings, because that's what they look like to me.
That is our first instance of cultural insensitivity in Fantasia.
Yes. Then comes the Dance of the Reed Pipes, and I think that's the one that was written different than the rest of the Nutcracker Suites when I read it originally. So that's the next one. Then the Arabian Dance, then the Russian Dance, and then the Waltz of the Flowers. So that's the order.
In general, the thing I liked about this was, and some of this was from watching the documentary, was the Nutcracker has a very specific story, and this thing went, no, we're not going to use any of that. We're going to take a whole new take on it, which I think was pretty bold for an already, a pretty bold idea that they were doing. They could have just easily been all right, do the Nutcracker story.
Yeah, and Deems Taylor, this is another one where you're learning and it becomes very educational. He mentions that Tchaikovsky wasn't super pumped about this.
I didn't know
really
that.
Interesting. It wasn't one of his favorites.
Well, I think I didn't know that it wasn't one of his favorites, but I do know when he was writing this, he was under a lot of direction. This was a collaboration. It wasn't just him sitting down and writing a piece of music.
So it wasn't coming from him and him alone.
Yeah, and I think when he did it, I think there was he was given a lot of direction, very specific things on how fast each piece should be, how long each one should be. I think he was given so many restrictions that maybe he didn't like it because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I feel like that makes sense when you think of anybody who's creating something, having that freedom versus having to create within a box.
Yeah.
That's literally my job.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's creative idea, and they're like, Ryan, do this. And I'm like, yes, sir.
What I liked throughout it, and you see it a couple different ways, is how images in nature mimic dancers or mimic people. So
Yeah.
the dancing during Dance of the Reed Pipes, they look like dancing dresses. They're flower petals, but then they almost look like dresses.
The Russian hats on the thistles.
Yeah. During the Russian dance. And the Waltz of the Flowers I love because it's the changing of the seasons. That one I thought was really beautiful.
What I thought was interesting too is watching some of the like the Russian dance, the Arabian dance. There were a lot of dance moves that were in it that were actually from the ballet, like the flowers.
Oh,
or whatever
really?
they had. Yeah, like I know like the Russian dance was very, very similar to the Trepak ballet that they usually do. But it was just being done by,
Animated
thistles
flowers.
and mushrooms.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. And we noticed too, kind of a nod to Cleo the goldfish.
well, we
in
noticed a
the
lot of this.
Arabian dance.
I think there was a lot of things you identified as like, boy, that sure looks a lot like this character, or has very similar animation styles, or this, which I think they do over and over. I know I've said that like there's scenes in Robin Hood where they're flat out just copying dances from Snow White and just putting Maid Marian on top of it. So
Yeah.
we'll see
and
that going
this
through.
is the same year as Pinocchio, so it makes sense that goldfish looks similar. I just kind of find it exciting when
It's
you see those similarities.
there's a lot of time and money saving things that they do, and it's interesting because there's a point where I would have been like, oh, they don't just draw everything, but then seeing the documentary, I'm like, well, it's pretty cool what they do to like fix stuff and make it look a certain way.
And it
We'll
wasn't
get to that.
identically
Yeah.
Cleo. It's still, and it was different colors, and there were many different fish, but it was reminiscent of Cleo.
I had one more thing to add. The narrator in the beginning, what I thought was really interesting, he said, no one performs this.
Yeah, and I
And
feel
I
like
was
people
like,
perform it all the time now.
Yeah, I was like, this is the most common thing you hear by Tchaikovsky. And
Which is,
at
you
that
think that was
time period, no one was
1940.
performing it.
Yeah,
So I also wonder, too, if it became more popular after Fantasia.
I wonder.
I don't know.
Playing with your dog tags.
So now we come to the most famous one. When
Oh,
everyone,
wait, we gotta vote on that last one.
What?
Thumbs up or thumbs
thumbs
down,
up or
ready?
thumbs down. I forgot.
Wait, are we doing this whole, the whole Nutcracker suite? Because some of them I like, some of them I didn't like.
Oh, good
Nope,
point.
we're doing the whole Nutcracker suite. You gotta give a general.
Oh,
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Oh,
Ooh.
so
Well,
two, we liked
wow.
it. Chris is giving a thumbs down. And what's your reasoning?
Wow, that's now he's giving a different finger to Tchaikovsky. That's insane.
Well, I liked the Sugar Plum Fairy, and I liked the Waltz of the Flowers, because I felt like those two kind of told a story. The other three or other four, I just kind of felt like they were just doing like the moves from the ballet, but putting animated things to it. And I didn't feel like it had creativity like the first two. The first two were at least telling a story. So I had to, you said I had to give an answer, so more were down. So I went with the thumbs down.
Hey, there's no judgment here. Was curious of your opinion, and I
Local
understand
Jersey music teacher hates the arts, is what I'm getting from.
Well, you know what? Tchaikovsky's actually one of my favorite composers, and I
and has
love
some of the best
suite.
French horn excerpts around.
Yeah, it's just I was saying in terms of Fantasia with the animation, pairing the animation with the songs, I was not a fan of a couple of the movements. All right,
Okay, so now we move on to the most famous.
Now, I have something I want to talk about with Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Oh, I've got
Okay.
some things too, but
Did you guys notice? Okay, so this is in
Sorcerer's
1940.
Apprentice, I guess we should say, is the next one.
Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yes.
Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Okay.
Sorcerer's Apprentice. So,
the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Sorcerer, the wizard student. This is the first time Mickey Mouse has looked like this.
Oh.
Because if you look at his old design, do you remember his old design from
like
like
Steamboat
Steamboat
Willie.
Willie, where it's like
Yeah.
this whole part of his face is all just his eyes, and they actually there's some in the documentary there were like I want to say screenshots, but probably not the word, but there were stills they drawn just trying it out where he looks like that, and the animators were like, you can't get as much expression. Can we put a pupil in the pupil? And they're like, oh, so they figured out. So this is the first time, and it's funny because we'll see a couple things after this when we get to like Fun and Fancy Free, which is a couple down from here, where it goes back to the old Mickey look for a second, or there'll be things like that where he'll
they're trying to decide.
Yeah, they're going back and forth. But this is the first modernization of Mickey, and I feel like this version of Mickey, you were talking about, it's in Fantasmic
So Fantasmic is a huge, big, beautiful light show. I think at both parks, Disneyland and Disney World, and I could be in ones outside of our country,
well, it was
outside of the United States.
For a while, that hat was on the Epcot ball, wasn't
for
it?
2000.
It was like 2000. It was up there till like 2006, and it was just like, okay.
But it is. I used to have the hat, the Sorcerer's hat that has the Mickey ears on it, and it was kind of a velvety texture. Mm-hmm.
I used to have the Goofy hat. It looked like Goofy. If we ever went back to Disney, I want that hat again so bad. Like the baseball hat with the floppy ears.
Oh yeah, with the big ears going down, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any Disney hats?
I had the Daffy Duck with the hard duck bill.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
So Sorcerer's Apprentice, what I found interesting, it was based on a German poem. So the story is very similar to the original poem, and the poem was 1797.
Wow.
So I found that
That's
interesting. They go on to say that the sorcerer was a little bit more intimidating in this story than in the original. And does anyone know the sorcerer's name? This is my trivia fact, listeners.
I was looking it up, but I didn't find it.
It's
Balthazar?
Yen Sid.
Oh, that's right.
Sid. Yen Sid, which is Disney backwards.
Oh.
So it's Y-E-N and then capital S-I-D.
His name is Balthazar in the live-action version starring Nick Cage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They made like a Pirates of the Caribbean-esque movie.
I thought you were pulling my leg on this one.
Oh no, it's Balthazar Blake, and his apprentice is the dude from Goon, and This Is the End, the guy who's like, I'm your friend, Seth Rogen. Anyway.
But I found that interesting, and I feel like that could totally be a trivia question in pub trivia. So
I wanted to talk for a moment about what Mickey was doing, which was he was filling up a well.
Yeah, it looked like it.
it looked like he was filling up water, I guess, for the sorcerer.
That was some Mr. Miyagi nonsense that he goes to apprentice for the sorcerer. The sorcerer's like, bring water from there to here. It will teach you how to do spells. I hated it. It made me mad. I'm on Mickey's side from moment one.
Really?
Mr. Miyagi nonsense.
I mean, I think Mickey gets a little lazy when he falls asleep. He starts magic and then passes
because
out.
he was doing a task that had no point. That's on Yitznid. Whatever his name is.
Yensid, I think,
Yensid.
is how you say it. Well, Chris, what did you think of this one? Is this one that you had seen out of context from, like, on its own?
I feel like I had seen it at some point. There were definitely parts of it that are like, oh yeah, I know that scene. Like when you see Mickey's shadow come out in the very beginning, his ears.
Yes, yeah.
Before he starts, like you see that and you instantly know what it's from. But I can't remember ever seeing the whole thing. Like when he falls asleep, I didn't remember that part with the waves.
Where he's clearly conducting an orchestra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a cool idea for him to be like, oh, this wave, and oh, like it was a very cool idea.
And then we all were a little startled at the true crime horror that happens with the broom.
When it turned into Psycho.
I didn't think he had it in him.
What? I know. I didn't know he had it in him either. Yeah, he sees this shiny axe next to the door as the broom is kind of going on its own and being a little out of control. And you see this scene of shadows of him splintering the broom.
That's bad axe safety, though. That's another thing to blame on.
It's not good axe safety. You're right.
Yeah,
Onion
seriously.
said,
You gotta lock it away. You gotta make sure because anybody can't just get it.
Well, spoiler, all the splinters of the broom turn into many more brooms, and it causes an even bigger problem for Mickey.
Does anybody have anything else on this one? So one of the reasons he had
Yensid?
One of the reasons he was named that is apparently they modeled his like one eyebrow up after Walt because Walt would do that look to people.
I really liked the way his face was animated. He was very menacing and intense.
He reminded me, and this is kind of funny because this person also has a wizard's costume of my grandfather Dave. as being not mean, but just with a look. You're like,
A
yes, okay,
stern look.
very stern.
Yeah, I can see that.
When we went to my grandmother's passed and we were like getting things out of her their apartment, he was giving them away. We found pictures of their Halloween, and I was like, I did not realize you were so super into Halloween, Dave. He had a full Dumbledore looking wizard outfit. It was insane.
Oh, nice.
We'll have to send it out. So if you're a bassoon player, I think you really need to check this song out. This was very bassoon heavy.
Very heavy with bassoon.
You really like that bassoon.
I love the bassoon. Do you guys? I don't think I feel like I ever hear this song outside of this. Like, it's so ingrained in Disney now that if I went to a concert and someone played it, I wonder if it's just associated with kids stuff now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
I played it with an orchestra a couple of years ago. We did it as a piece on the program.
Now, was it like
a family program?
concert?
No, it was just a regular concert. We did this with a couple other pieces.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Listen. I don't go to a lot of classical
Orchestral.
music
Yeah.
concerts, but it's just one that I never. If I saw this somewhere, I'd be like, "Ooh, I love the Sorcerer's Apprentice." Because again, there's a story I could just close my eyes and be like,
And picture.
watch the movie.
The other bit that we all really were surprised and enjoyed was Mickey comes out and shakes
Oh, Stokowski's hand.
hand.
Oh
How you say
yeah.
it? Is that how you say
As
it?
a shadow.
Stokowski's?
Stokowski. Yeah.
Stokowski. I
Stokowski,
keep screwing it up.
excuse me.
Stokowski. And I love that. He's just like, "Oh, you did great." Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he pulls on his tails of his coat.
Yeah. So what's the next one? Oh, wait.
We have to rate it. And Chris, do you have anything else on this one?
No.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
All right.
That's
All
3 thumbs up.
All right, Chris. This one is Stravinsky. Here we go.
Oh, there we go.
The Rite of Spring.
It's time for parents, put your kids to sleep because this is going to turn into a Rush Limbaugh-esque rant. We're going to get.
So a couple fantasy facts for you here. The Rite of Spring.
Fairy tale facts.
Fairy tale facts.
Fantasy facts are for our Lord of the Rings podcast we're doing later.
Fair. It's 10 minutes shorter than the original. So earlier we mentioned that Stravinsky was not happy with the arrangement. So that could have maybe contributed to that. And also, when this piece opened, not for Fantasia, but when it opened in 1913 and was performed, it caused a riot at the premiere.
Yeah,
which I found
knew
interesting.
about that.
And then the other thing that happens in Fantasia...
Was it people trying to leave? They wouldn't let them? No, I'm just kidding.
There was a riot because people didn't like it. They didn't get it. They were upset with how it sounded.
That's so weird. I can't imagine being like, boo! And an orchestra piece would be like, ah! Like, this Altamont type thing.
The other thing that was interesting is before they started the piece, the chimes all fell.
Oh, yeah. Well, first it was a bit of humor before a giant science info dump. So I think that was it. They're like, we're having fun here, right? In 5 billion years ago, the Earth was nothing but a speck of dust. That wasn't, it's like...
Yes, we did get an educational piece on evolution, and that is what this next one is all about.
I looked into that a little bit.
Wait.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was gonna say when the narrator was talking about that, he got like very serious when he was going, "This is all based on science, not art." It was almost like people, I guess, like trying to convince people that hey, dinosaurs were real.
Probably. I mean, dinosaurs had only been discovered within less than 100 years, probably almost 50 years. Like dinosaurs were discovered in the Old West. Mm-hmm. So they had, and that wasn't too much earlier than that. The other thing I looked up was, you were asking, was this controversial at the time?
Because the creation of the world versus religious.
Really, the idea of teaching both of those in school had been an argument starting after World War I. So it was something they were starting to say, you need to teach creationism versus this. They finally made a ruling about it in the 60s. I forgot what that lawsuit was called, but yeah, you're right. This was something that was controversial.
I found it interesting that Disney took a stand on that.
Yeah,
and maybe that's why he was so serious in his description of this is science.
Yeah,
and then it also got me thinking: do science teachers show this excerpt?
Yes, they do. When I thank you. In the documentary, you know who Leonard Maltin is?
I do not.
Very famous film historian and critic. He was talking about it, and he said they used to get it together, and he's like, they pull in a 16 millimeter projector, and they put the reel on there, and they just show us that in science class. So
That's
at one
cool.
point they did.
Because that was my first thought, was this is a really great way to have that discussion with kids at a younger age. And I think even in high school, you could still show it and then talk about it.
And I, listen, I'm a big dinosaur dork. I'm a dorkosaurus, but, this one was a little long.
Yes, this one was long for me.
There was a lot of really cool stuff they did with I think the story of the creation of the universe. They made like clay, and they blew bubbles through it and then filmed that, and then did that as art pieces for that was reference for when they did the lava and everything. And the special effects department, like when they did this documentary, they brought it. The special effects guys weren't in any other segment, and on this one they're like, we did a lot of work, and people say a lot of things about this, but I gotta tell you what, they were like real defensive of this piece as a special effects, and it was gorgeous, all the comets and the flames and all that. But what were your thoughts, Chris, on the overall quality of this one piece?
You know, the dinosaurs looked a little funny. It took a long time to get to the dinosaurs.
Yes.
I felt like we spent 7 minutes just, showing like scenery, and then you see finally a cell, and it starts dividing, and then it turns into these creepy looking dinosaurs.
They showed the jellyfish ate one, and I swear the one it ate had like a cartoon face that was like, oh no, like as it was eating. I was like, oh.
This one's hard for me because when you talk about the special effects, I want to be like, yay, and give them a bunch of credit. But voting on it for me,
I think if they'd cut it a little better, it would have been more palpable. You know what it reminded me of? Do you guys remember the Epcot ride, the Universe of Energy, before Ellen and Bill Nye took it over?
I mean, I wrote it, but I don't remember it.
I don't remember it either.
Well, do you remember the dinosaur? There's like animatronic dinosaurs in it. So it was like a 20-minute ride, and about 2 minutes of it were the dinosaurs, and the 18 minutes before were like, energy, how you get fossil fuels. And I was a kid, I was like, and my dad loved that I loved to ride it because he's like, sweet, I can take an 18-minute nap while we're in it. But that's what this felt like. It was like a lot of like, to get to like, ooh, dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And then we just watched them all die.
We watched them all die. Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like the dinosaurs were a little underwhelming.
Okay. So let's give our thoughts on this one. Are you ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
All right.
3
the
thumbs
first
down
all
for
thumbs
this one.
down. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, I want to like
I think if you
be
just
excited
had this,
for the special effects guys and the animating, but it as a whole, it didn't.
it's
track
definitely
for me.
one that like if you're watching this start to finish and you're like, I need to go to the bathroom or I need to like go get some more popcorn. This is
Now's the
place to do it.
time
Well,
to do
it's
it.
funny you say that because right after that is
Was the
intermission.
Yeah.
So when we were watching it, it says we're gonna. Deems Taylor says we're gonna take a 15-minute intermission. We were like, are they gonna just go right back into it?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be
Are
15
we gonna
minutes
sit
on
here
the
through
tape?
it? What's happening?
So during the road show, when it was being shown all over the country, they actually took the 15-minute
Yeah.
intermission. So it was broken up, which makes sense if you were to go to an orchestral concert or see a play or a musical or anything like that. Typically, there's an intermission. So that was they followed the same format of that.
Yeah.
And then when the
I just loved watching all the musicians get up like they were legitimately there and getting up as opposed to like, and then the cameras went off and, you know, like.
Yeah, you watch them get up and leave, which is what you would do in a live performance. And then you see them all come back in, and then they start with a little jazzy tune led by a clarinet player.
Yeah, they're weirdly just playing a song when they
Like
what
a little
Dean's
warm-up,
back and
I
is just
guess.
Like, oh, musicians.
But the part that I really liked, that again was educational, and I thought, Chris, I want to get your opinion on this, showing the kids about music, is when they talk about the soundtrack. They're like, we're going to have a character come in, and it's the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And they start doing the acoustics of each instrument and how the acoustics are visual.
Yeah, I thought that
Yes.
was really cool. And I thought it was neat that they went through all the different like families of instruments, and just kind of visualized to the kids like the low and high notes, loud and soft, and kind of they could see a visual to associate with it.
Yeah, and I thought that could be an interesting way to show that to kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you want to vote on that one? I think we're all
I'll
thumbs
vote
up
on
on
that.
that one.
Yeah,
One,
I'm
two,
in on
three.
that.
I like the soundtrack.
I do too. All right, so now we move on to the Pastoral, Beethoven Symphony Number 6. And this is the weirdest of them all.
So
Yes.
I wanted to, as an adult, I very much like this one because I'm also, in addition to being a Disney nerd and a dinosaur nerd, I'm a triple threat. I'm a mythology nerd.
That is true. I can attest to that.
This is one that I would find hard to show to the kiddies.
It also,
Yeah.
this one is 20 minutes instead of, I believe, the original symphony is 40 minutes, from what I found on a quick search. And one of my thoughts after we're through it, like we're about halfway watching it, is I would love to know what Beethoven would have thought if he watched this along to his symphony.
There's a lot of, like, not just talking about the fact that there's, like, shirtless centaurs that don't have any nipples, but it's weirdly sexualized where they're, like, cleaning themselves and
Yes,
doing
and then
that.
it's the centaurettes.
Yeah, so I'm saying the women are just, like, it's definitely drawn by a bunch of men. But as weird as some of this may be, you guys, there was a point where it was much stranger. Mm-hmm. There was a character that was shown in the original version, but was taken out, I think, starting in the 60s. Her name was Claudette. She started off by she was shining all the hoofs of the lady centaurs, and she was actually not half horse; she was half donkey. Would you like to see a picture of Claudette?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, that can't go in.
We're going to put that on the Facebook page. We'll be sure to show a picture of Claudette. But that also segues into what we also observed is that all the centaurs are paired up by color.
Yeah.
And the first time you see that is you see a centaur, male centaur who's very sad and he's blue.
Centaur.
Like
guitar.
excuse me. And then the narrator calls them centaurettes, which I don't know if that's referred
They're
to
just
anywhere
centaurs.
else.
They're just lady centaurs. They're not centaurettes.
But yeah,
They're not a
blue,
kick line. Which if they had a centaur kick line,
I would have been
that
back
would
on board.
awesome.
But you see this sad blue centaur, and then, it reveals the blue centaur, and then they fall in love, I guess.
Yes, and then
they
you
trot
see them, and
along.
it's like, oh look, the red centaurs are in love.
Yeah,
It's like,
so they were paired by
stick,
color.
stick to your hue.
Yes. Also, in the very beginning, there's unicorns, and there's Pegasi.
Pegasi, you are correct.
Pegasi. And the unicorns reminded all of us of My Little Ponies, and I'm very curious because My Little Ponies don't come out for another 41 years. So I'm curious if they were directly influenced by this because they looked almost identical in some of the shots and the scenes.
I found all the censored scenes with Claudette.
Oh no. We'll post it on the Facebook page.
So let me go ahead and save that.
And send it to Chris so he can watch it.
Yep. Oh boy.
And then the other part that gets kind of borderline is Bacchus, the god of wine, tries to get really handsy with all the centaurs. He gets drunk, and then it is like really chasing them all down.
And there are parts where he's an adorable character at the end where he's like happy about certain, like,
Yeah, and
like
he's
that
got
the
a donkey.
rainbow's out and stuff.
He's got a cute little donkey who also has a unicorn, so it's a donkey unicorn.
horn.
And the donkey was another similar animation to Pinocchio.
Does that mean a narwhal is like a mermaid and a unicorn?
Whoa.
But yeah, Bacchus gets a little too handsy for me.
Yes. This is the one that I think, again, I'm a big mythology nerd, so I enjoyed it. But at the same time, like, if there was one where like, well, we could redo one of these, I'd be like, let's redo this one. Let's keep the same idea of it, but like, let's change a few things here and there.
I did like the rainbow. So we didn't talk about Zeus. Zeus comes in to break up all the debauchery, essentially.
Yes.
And throws down the lightning bolts and the thunder and
He's
everything.
so happy about doing it.
So jolly. And then
Very excited.
the rainbow. I liked her when she came
Yes.
through the land with the rainbow. And an interesting fact I read is the rainbow colors are reversed. So if you're watching it, make sure to look for that.
Ruined the entire. So Rainbow Bright and My Little Ponies both came from this.
She didn't look like Rainbow Bright at all.
All right, thanks for stomping on my joke. So, Chris, did you enjoy?
Do you have anything else for this one? And then we can vote.
I'll just say once you mentioned that about the rainbow, I could not stop looking at it.
I'm so sorry.
Way to go.
I ruined
awesome.
it. I'm sorry.
No, you talked about everything I had on my list. The centaurettes with they were very provocative. And
I think it was weird.
Not wearing shirts.
One thing we talked about on this.
Some of them had flowers over their boobs, and others had nothing.
Some pasties
and no
on.
nipples.
Uh-huh. All right, so what did you what did you think of this one? Want to give it one, two, three. Okay.
Oh, a thumbs down for me.
I think it's culturally inappropriate, needs to be changed, and it's not for kids. But if you're an adult, yeah, I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I liked that there was like some connection between all the different movements, and there was kind of a story, but it was just some of it was weird, man. It was
Some of it was very bizarre for me, which took me out of the experience, which is why I voted no on it.
Okay, fair.
However, I did like the depictions of the gods, and basically at one point Ryan was like, "You just want to go watch Hercules," which is he's not wrong. I love.
You want to watch but you wanted to. You're like, I want to learn more, like when it showed Artemis and the moon, and she was like,
and she looked like a bad warrior. I was like, tell her story.
There are kids who are going to
excuse me. A rock star warrior.
A bad bee.
Bad garsh.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll put the thing there. That'll be the first one. But yeah, Tara was into that, and I'm like, oh, we should watch the Hercules show after this.
Yeah.
All right, so what's next?
Next is Dance of the Hours, which is so delightful and one of my favorites.
I like this one. Now, I will say this one took a lot of hits from the upper crust crowd because, so a couple things. Number one, Walt's intention here, he goes, I want this to be higher than lowbrow, but lower than highbrow.
And for listeners, Dance of the Hours is the hippos with the ballerinas, basically all the
hippos,
animals dancing.
The ostrich, the elephants, and the crocodiles. Mm-hmm. And they brought in an actual ballet dancer to the group that worked on this. So there's a shot in the thing of this ballet dancer on stage just doing moves, and like there's all these guys like line drawing her. And apparently, originally it was going to be like just making fun of ballet. And the animators got they were like, this is really hard. Like, they got such an appreciation for it that they went back and kind of went, we're not making fun of ballet. We're making fun of the fact that it's kind of ridiculous that an ostrich and a hippo or... Yeah.
And I love that animals you don't perceive graceful were dancing very gracefully.
It was wonderful.
I love that so much.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of, like, irony in the whole section. Like, even, like, when, like, the hippo coming out was very sultry.
Yes, very sultry.
And
the elephants, too, the way they moved.
And I also noticed, too, the music got much lighter then when the hippo came out. It's like you saw the complete opposite from what you were hearing.
It wasn't like, boom, boodle, boodle.
Yeah.
It was all very, very high strings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the reoccurring theme is Camp Granada, so it was hard to not sing that.
Camp Granada is this theme. It's have some respect for Rite of what is this one? Dance of the Hours.
Dance of the Hours.
I think this one is the one I remember almost as much. There's the three I remember the most, which is Sorcerer's Apprentice, this one, and Night on Bald Mountain. And this one I felt like was played a lot, sometimes to other music on DTV and stuff like that. But this one cracked me up. Like I was legitimately laughing out loud a few times just from jokes during this
And I
one.
feel like from a merchandising standpoint, I've seen the hippo ballerina on things or as a stuffed animal or something. I'll have to do more research on that, but I know I've seen that.
Ballerina every time I look in a mirror.
Now I want to ask you guys about those alligator vampires.
I love the alligator vampires.
She goes, they look like vampires.
Now why were they chasing the hippos? I was really kind of confused at why they were chasing, and I'm probably trying to put too much reason to it, but I was just wondering why they were chasing the hippos, because even at the end they did get the hippos, but I believe they just stood on top of them, and then the curtains closed.
I think originally it was they were going to eat that one. And then the one with the hat fell in love with her. And then the other ones were jealous and wanted their own bride, so they started stealing the elephants.
Okay, all right, I'll go with that.
That's my take on it.
I'm in with that. I was going to ask the same thing, that maybe they were going after it for food, but hippos are actually very ferocious in the wild, and so I was curious if that would track in real life.
Let's find out.
No, it doesn't track in real life.
Yeah. But I like your take on it.
Crocodiles don't F with hippos.
Yeah.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, vote. 1, 2, 3, vote. Yep.
All right.
We all
like
liked
that one.
Okay.
All right, the finale.
Oh.
Night on Bald Mountain and Ave Maria. So I think originally we talked about them separately before we watched it. Mm-hmm. They are combined to show the dark and the light.
Mm-hmm. The idea being, the story being that Chernobog, the demon on top of Bald Mountain, is trying to get this, is revving up to spook this town, but then the day comes and then it, like, they celebrate that it drives him away.
Yeah, and the monks come in.
This was one where they really wanted to, they kept saying that they didn't want to scare the audience, but they definitely wanted to give them a feeling of, like, unease or terror or,
tension.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love it. This is my favorite one because it always showed up on Disney Channel at Halloween. Like, I always associate it with Halloween. It's such a good, like, spooky, haunting scene. It's so good. I love it. And
Chernobog is a fierce villain.
Yes.
He's great.
I could see him in Villainous someday.
Oh, in the board game.
Yes. I think he's typically considered the villain of this movie. Like, if you wanted, like,
well, we have to go through our questions.
We'll go through that. I'm going to bring that up while we're talking about it. You go ahead.
Well, Chris, what are your thoughts on this one?
I really liked it. I thought it was great how, like, once again, like, it told a really good story. Throughout. I liked it.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites too, and I kept talking about how emotional Ave Maria is when I hear it. But it didn't take me out of the experience, which I liked. Like, even though I have a personal connection to that piece, I really like the way it was animated in Fantasia.
Yeah, and
it's very beautiful.
I love how, like, simply it was animated too. Like, it was almost like this stillness that was happening. There's not much movement going on. Things are panning very slowly, and there's almost this stillness that you kind of associate with that song.
Yeah.
Originally, it was supposed to have a much more Christian-oriented ending, where you kind of go through what looks like a series of doors. It's you going to heaven at the end, and then the Madonna is there and all that. But they kind of changed it because someone decided it was too overtly Christian, and someone came up to Walt, was like, "Well, do a sunset because that's one of the most hopeful things you can have is the next day."
And it was very beautiful.
And it just ends. There's no credits.
Yeah,
there's
we were
nothing.
all surprised about that. The orchestra doesn't come back. The narrator doesn't come back.
I thought maybe
nobody comes back.
See the orchestra like get up and leave since we saw them do that.
End on the image of the
Intermission.
sunset.
Yeah. Let's vote on this last one. 1, 2, 3.
All right, all thumbs up.
So Chris, we have some questions we like to ask at the end of this.
Okay.
I'm gonna mix them up from this order here. So we talk. This one's not gonna necessarily adhere to a lot of our stuff because we ask about one of our questions. We'll just go through them. How is the villain? And I guess if we rate the villain as Chernobog, I rate him very highly.
I love Chernobog, but
I
I also
Zeus
really like
could
the
be
Sorcerer.
another villain.
He's
the Sorcerer.
He's 10 out of 10. I'd see him again. Like, he was great.
Yeah.
Do you think the Sorcerer was a villain?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I think he saved the day.
I guess you could look at it that way. I guess it depends on your perspective. And I mean, evolution, if we want to take it a real dark turn.
Evolution was the villain?
All those dinosaurs, we watch them all die. No, but Chernobog, to be on a more serious note, yeah, Chernobog, I think, and he's amazing.
How is the sidekick? I liked the little unicorns in that one, and I liked there was a scene where the storm was coming and a bunch of little baby ones went under one of their legs, and he like stood, and I liked it because it was cartoony, but it was also kind of bold. But I also liked it because they really showed the fur kind of getting matted up in the rain. And I know I was denying being a My Little Pony fan earlier, and now I'm really describing this pony in a lot of detail. So maybe I was lying, and I'm discovering something about myself today.
I'm trying to think who else would be considered sidekicks. Would anybody
My
in the
sidekick-
Broom.
I'd pick
Maybe
the
the broom
ostrich.
was the bad guy.
The ostrich.
I
Yeah.
love the
I
ostrich.
love
They
the
come in the
ostrich,
beginning
or the
and they kind of
ostrai.
disappear. And then the whole story's about, the hippos and the alligators.
Yeah.
Well, then that's a good thing because my next question is how is the princess, who I think we can all agree
Is that
Was the
hippo?
hippo.
She was
Yes.
fantastic. I loved her.
She was great. She was strong. She's
She's strong.
Yes.
So yes,
Um,
and I don't want to. I hope this isn't like rude, but Lizzo in the live action, 100%, right?
Yeah.
Bold, beautiful, big woman. Let's do
Yes.
this. And then we get some short guy to play her prince, which is of course the crocodile. And I would rate the crocodile pretty highly because he starts
Crocodile
off.
or an alligator?
I think he's a crocodile because they're all African creatures.
okay,
That would be my guess.
All right.
And I think he was good because he was kind of a bad boy.
Yeah. I liked him. He was sneaky
Like Danny
and then
Zuko.
love won in the end.
Yes. What was your favorite musical number? Which I think is one that'll definitely work in there. I loved
Oh man.
Bald Mountain, 100%. But I was shocked at how much I liked the hippo one. I keep forgetting the name of
Dance
it.
of the Hours.
Dance of the Hours. But I will also say that I feel like the music was the least interesting part of that one.
This is hard for me. Sorcerer's Apprentice is very nostalgic for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
one that I really loved, and like I felt like I could hum every note of it, and I loved all the visuals. But I really enjoyed Dance of the Hours. But I would agree with Ryan that repetitive theme musically is not as interesting, I think, as visually.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
What one did you like the best?
I'm looking through them now. I don't know. I really
Yeah.
liked
always
the
have a hard
first
time
one,
picking one.
Toccata and Fugue.
Oh yeah.
And I really liked Night on Bald Mountain as well. I don't know. I'm trying to decide which one I liked a little bit better. I like that there was more of a. I like that there was more of a story to Night on Bald Mountain. But like I said earlier about Toccata and Fugue having like this almost hypnotic effect, I thought was really neat, and it was like they took you down the rabbit hole, seeing all the shadows first and all the colors, and then tying it into the animation.
So this movie really peaked early for you, and then just
No, he liked the beginning and the end.
It's sandwich because I like the end too, the last one.
I love Night on Bald Mountain. I know I said it was between Sorcerer's Apprentice and Dance of the Hours, but I do love the Chernberg. How do you say?
Chernberg? No, that's the mayor of Schenectady.
How do you say his name?
That's Chernabog.
Chernabog. Chernabog is a great, great villain. So yeah, it's hard for me. I can narrow it down to 3, and I don't know that I can narrow it down to 1.
So our big question, Chris, is do you like it? Would you like to release a platinum edition clamshell VHS of this movie, or would you like to lock it away in the vault?
Ooh, I'd release it. I would
I would
lock.
too.
Don't
I
lock
would
this
too.
away. Don't lock it away.
Yeah, I think there's so many good things about it, and I think we've highlighted a lot of them. And it did something nobody else was doing. And I don't know that many other people
Have done it to this degree.
Since then, I mean, they do
Yeah.
Fantasia 2000, which, Chris, we're going to invite you back on for Fantasia 2000.
Yeah, now that I've seen parts of that one before.
I don't think Disney didn't even do it like this. All the ones he did afterwards, which were kind of the cut-up musical ones, were all more popular music. He did
Yeah.
it a couple times within them, like he did Peter and the Wolf and stuff like that within the larger pictures. But it was also like country music or Latin music or just crazy world stuff. That was probably the most cultural. Otherwise, it was just popular.
And you talked about earlier, I know we talked about it while we were watching it. I think we talked about it earlier as well, that this did not do well overall when it came out. And I wonder if that's why he shied away from it for a while.
Yes.
Because Snow White was such a huge success. Pinocchio was a pretty decent success. This was his first flop, even though it wasn't a total flop, but it wasn't as successful as I think he anticipated it to be.
It has since then, in its re-releases, become more and more popular.
Well, and Chris, didn't you read something about it?
Yeah, and I also was going to say
grossing?
too, like the 60s and the 70s. I mean, come on, with that movie.
Oh,
what are you
with
getting
this?
at? What do you mean?
I
Yeah.
think you know what I
What do you
mean.
mean? Well, I think we covered it pretty well, guys. We feel
think
good?
so.
You feel good?
Yeah, I feel
You feel
good,
good about all this?
Chris.
Yeah,
Chris?
I feel great about this.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Chris.
No
Thanks
problem.
for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And I guess we'll see you in 8 years for Fantasia 2000.
Yeah, we'll see how
whenever
long
we
it
get
takes
to
us
that.
to get to Fantasia 2000 since we're in 1940. But you never know. Chris might pop up before then.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll say this: if you happen to watch a Goofy movie,
Oh,
I'm in for that.
you're down. Ryan has never seen it.
No, are you serious?
So it's not.
I watch the music video of what is it, Eye to Eye?
Yes.
I watch that a lot. I've never seen the movie. I just know
it's so good.
It's not technically on the official list,
But
but,
it is
we're
on our
adding
list.
it.
So,
It should be.
The official list of Disney animated.
All right. Well, we'll get you back for that one. But thanks for joining us, guys.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And trumpets are the best instruments. Goodbye.
Oh, boo!
Nope, horns.
Thanks for listening to Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries.
If you want to tell us your favorite Disney villain and why it's guest on, send us an email at trprincessdiaries@gmail.com.
Or you can send a tweet about how great Maleficent is to @TRPDiaries.
Check out our Facebook group by searching for Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries.
Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Overcast, and many more.
Wherever you hear us, please be our knight in shining armor and give us a 5-star review.
Thanks again, and until next time, remember to always live happily ever after.